As House Republicans flout and even seemingly joke about mask wearing at the Capitol, we learn one of their staffers recently tested positive for COVID-19. A chance to help defend Coloradans' homes from wildfire has turned into an extended work trip for a Washington firefighter.
By that afternoon, my life was turned upside down.
No nice hotel accommodations, he spent months in the hospital battling coronavirus. Mayor Michael Hancock lost a lot of public trust with his Thanksgiving trip out of state. Can we still expect him front and center in the city's response to the virus? Game on! A Denver therapist is reaching teens through one of their favorite time killers. And 4 months of life means 4 months of Broncos fandom, which means 4 months of uncertainty and heartache. She seems to be smiling through it all, though, as we all should, because this is next. In just the first day of Colorado Legislature's special session, there is already concern over potential COVID exposure for lawmakers. Democratic House Speaker Casey Becker says a House minority staffer was asked to leave the Capitol today and work remotely for the remainder of the session. Becker sent a letter to her staff saying the minority staffer tested positive last week, but newly minted House Minority Leader Hugh McKean says the staffer tested positive on November 17th, not last week. McKean says the person was cleared by a doctor to return to work last week. The staffer will have to test negative before being allowed back into the Capitol. Becker says CDPHE will be working on contact tracing for anyone who may have come in contact with that staffer. The special session this week is to address needs brought on by the pandemic. Almost 36 bills were introduced today across both the House and the Senate. Things like small business grants for non-essential businesses and food pantry assistance programs. Republican lawmakers also seemed intent on blunting the governor's power in situations similar to this one. They introduced bills like House Bill 1013, which would put some limits on emergency orders. Another, House Bill 1011, would have given the state legislature the power to extend states of emergency declared by the governor that are health related. The governor could declare a state of emergency for 30 days, but any renewal beyond that would be up to state legislators. They say that this rectifies a separation of power issue where the governor has a so-called blank check.
Thrive, to think that one person can adequately understand the response and the impact on the people of Colorado is probably not right. That's why we have a state legislature. That's why we have 65 state representatives. And so this bill, through House Bill 1011, what it simply does is it says, hey, in the future, because we now have some lessons learned, right, through COVID-19 and the pandemic, we need to have broader buy-in if we are going to go anything beyond 30 days.
He's relying on science. And he's relying on public health guidance to make sure that we're saving lives. I don't believe that our governor or that any governor would wake up in the morning to put these policies in place looking forward to it, to make life a little harder on the people of Colorado. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to save lives. And I want to make sure that our governor, who was elected by the people of Colorado overwhelmingly, has that ability to continue to save lives and has that ability to continue to put policies in place to protect the people of Colorado.
Now, Republican lawmakers argue that if the legislation was in place right now, nothing would really be different because they would have voted to extend the state of emergency. Both House bills died in committee. Joking about wearing a mask in the middle of a global pandemic is not funny. It's also not how you Colorado. Republican Representative Larry Liston decided to wear his mask on his head, seemingly joking with several maskless colleagues next to him in the chamber. One of his fellow representatives didn't seem to find it too funny, calling him out for it on Twitter. Photos from the chamber today showed a good amount of Republican legislators not wearing masks. Back to the real world now, where COVID exists. A firefighter who was deployed to Colorado to help fight the Cameron Peak fire might finally get to return home this week. Jason Phillips spent 3 weeks defending homes from the flames near Red Feather Lakes. Then he spent the next 3 months fighting COVID-19.
August 10th of 2020 is when we arrived in the Cameron Peak fire from Idaho State.
And from that point, Jason Phillips, a firefighter from Washington State, fought what would become the state's largest wildfire in history. He spent 3 weeks defending homes until one afternoon he just didn't feel right.
I couldn't breathe. I couldn't keep nothing down. You know, my whole entire body was shaking so bad that I couldn't hold a pencil to write my own name.
A positive test would reveal it was COVID, and Phillips was immediately admitted to the ICU, where doctors told him,
We'd put you on a ventilator, and you have a 50-50 chance of surviving.
50-50. Phillips was on that ventilator for 39 days.
Inside the coma, I clinically died once. My heart stopped beating.
More than a month, more than 1,000 miles away from home.
You miss the whole entire month of September.
He eventually recovered enough to get off the ventilator and soon after leave the ICU and the hospital, heading to an acute care and rehab facility in Johnstown, where he's been ever since.
As I'm sitting here talking to you, I can't walk. I can't breathe very good.
Yet even after all of this, he is determined to get back out there.
I plan on fighting fires next year. If I can get myself back to square again, I would do this all over again. If it meant from the time I fought this fire, the time I saved, these homes, these people can go back to these homes now and these cabins. And
Jason told me today that he credits his faith in God for getting him through that. He also said that he could be able to go home to Washington later this week. 1,813 people are currently hospitalized with COVID-19 in Colorado. That's up 85 from yesterday. Over the last 24 hours, 193 patients have been discharged or transferred. Our current positivity rate bumped back up to 12.4%. Our 7-day average is 11.3%. That's down from where it was in the middle of November, but we'll watch that trend to see if it continues dropping. Colorado added just less than 4,000 new cases yesterday. We're averaging around 4,000 cases a day. That number has started to trend downward as well. And we're now averaging roughly 30 deaths per day from COVID-19. This has been going up slowly, but state health experts expect it to jump significantly by the end of the year. Now, while Mayor Michael Hancock sent out a public apology after traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday, do not expect him to necessarily be public with any COVID-19 test results he receives after his trip. Our Marshall Zellinger was the first to report last week that Denver's mayor was traveling out of the state for the holidays, despite repeatedly encouraging Denverites to stay home. Marshall talked to the mayor over the weekend after he returned to Denver and wondered whether he'd be told if he tests positive or not.
If you were to test positive, particularly in the next 2 weeks, would you be public about it?
I'm not going to go do a hypothetical with you, Marshall.
If you ever get COVID-19, will you let the public know about it?
I will let anyone who I came in contact with know that we'll do everything we can to let folks know that I tested positive. Let me just say this: we had a situation where I may have been exposed, and so I had to quarantine during that time as well, get tested, and make sure that we were all clear. Most people didn't know that I was quarantined, that I may have been exposed.
Now, public confidence in the mayor's leadership during the pandemic was certainly shaken with last week's news, and Marshall asked if he will continue to be the face of the city's COVID-19 response since he himself is not following the guidelines.
There's a whole cadre of people who are working hard every day, and since this virus came upon us, spending 12, 14, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, to save the lives and to save livelihoods of the people of the city and the state. Nothing that I've done should negate that. As a mayor, I'm the vessel of a lot of that data and a lot of information that very smart people are giving me to make sure that we get it to the public. So I've never come online to talk about COVID without the public health official with me. I will continue to do that.
If you'd like to hear more from Marshall's one-on-one with Mayor Hancock, we posted the full interview to the Next Facebook page. Well, last week being a holiday week for most of you, that didn't seem to impact your capacity for generosity. $5 at a time, you helped raise more than $75,000 for Secor Cares Food Bank. It's a nonprofit fighting suburban poverty in Arapahoe, Douglas, and Elbert counties. You're closing in on almost $2 million raised through our Word of Thanks microgiving campaign since June. We'll have another focus for your continued generosity coming up on Wednesday. Our parents always told us video games were bad for us. I plan to show mine Jeremy Hahola's story today about how a local therapist is using a video game to connect with young patients during the pandemic. Broncos fans have been suffering for months. This young fan has had to deal with their awful quarterback play her whole life. It's the most Colorado thing we saw today, and it's next. always makes me miss hockey season. As the demand for mental health help skyrockets across the country, one local child therapist has found a unique solution to reach more parents. While in the real world, the pandemic is forcing people to stay home, he found another world to connect with the kids who need attention, and it's proving effective. Here's Jeremy Hohola.
I see two of you. I see the real Braulio
from my kitchen,
and I see the Braulio in Minecraft.
And from his mental health office in Denver, I meet Braulio Rivera, a child therapist in the popular block building game Minecraft.
This really started from necessity and maybe a little bit of desperation, trying to figure out a way to connect with youth.
Braulio and another therapist with the Mental Health Center of Denver created their own Minecraft world for therapy, and they replicated the building where kids would normally meet, a solution to no in-person meetings.
The answer was already there, and I think that inevitably we were heading in that direction.
Amid this pandemic and an unfamiliar world, Braulio created a familiar place. Now, up to 30 times a week, he meets with kids here.
We created a world where youth are welcome, and it's safe, and it's secure.
I haven't played Minecraft in a long time, so how do I... There you go.
Come on in. Okay. Yes.
All right, here we go. This is awesome. This is fantastic. This is great.
This is our front desk. And normally you would check in, and the youth know the setup. They come in and say, hey, I'm here to see Braulio. And so then they have a seat.
What I found remarkable about Braulio's world is that it's a tool to see into the mind of a child. Like interpreting what kids draw on paper, what they build reflects what they feel.
Do you make your house impenetrable with diamonds, or do you put cannons on top? Do you have these, I think they're called beacons. They make you stronger. And then how far down do you dig?
As he was showing me around.
Completely not my idea. This was completely organic.
Braulio told me about things he discovered the kids built on their own. A special stage to celebrate someone's graduation out of the therapy program.
And all of the members hang out down here and shoot fireworks. And that is now our ritual.
And then there was a secret room the kids built together. Braulio believes their play in this world reflects what all of society is yearning for.
Connection is everything, and community is everything. And so I think that this is a big metaphor of that natural pull that we have from birth, that we need to be a part of something.
From a confusing real world to a place kids can control, Braulio has found a new way to build connection.
This means the world to me.
For Next.
This is deeper than pixels.
Jeremy Hohola, 9 News.
That's pretty cool. The Mental Health Center of Denver launched the Minecraft therapy program back in August, and so far they say it's been effective at connecting kids who need help. For more on how the pandemic has impacted the mental health of young people, check out a link from our sister station in Atlanta on the next section of 9news.com. Colorado thrives on tourism dollars. Is the state still trying to attract that cash cow with the pandemic still raging? And we're not sure if she can even count to 4 yet. But the most Colorado thing we saw today was this little girl who has cheered on the same amount of Broncos quarterbacks as months she's lived on this earth. So who's it going to be next? Tonight's next question comes from a viewer named Sydney. She wants to know if Colorado's tourism office is including warnings about COVID when advertising travel in Colorado to out-of-state visitors. Interesting question, Sydney. The state tourism office says that they are only marketing to in-state travelers right now. They stopped their out-of-state advertisements back when the pandemic first began to impact the state in March. They've instead focused their efforts since June on encouraging Coloradans to safely explore the state and help boost the tourism economy. This winter, they tell us they're planning a campaign with 2 goals: promoting traveler safety and driving people to stay and shop local, especially along the Front Range, to help drive the economic recovery here.
Beautiful way to start the week and end the month of November with sunshine, clear skies, and temperatures near 60 degrees this afternoon. But it all changes tomorrow with the arrival of a new month, a new weather pattern. Northern mountains will see the snow showers overnight. Denver will see scattered snow showers by this time tomorrow. The cold and snow settle in and through about Wednesday afternoon, and then we start to see skies clear. No advisories for snow, even though we do have accumulation possible here, especially along the Front Range. So again, the much needed moisture comes into the northern mountains first and then into the metro area tomorrow. Partly cloudy, 29 tonight. We have mostly cloudy, windy and colder conditions with snow showers both Tuesday and Wednesday. Clearing with a nice warming trend. We're back to sunshine and 50s on the weekend.
How about a happy little story or update to a story that we brought you earlier this month? Because, you know, we could all use some happy right now. A few weeks ago, we shared the quest of Amanda Wolse and her family. Their goal was to visit 30 local parks in 60 days. And they recently crossed the finish line. Amanda says they visited their 30th park on November 18th. They ended their endeavor at Redstone Park in Highlands Ranch. Amanda says their park adventures really hit home the need for getting outside, especially for young kids. She says that their next goal is to spend over 1,000 hours outside with their kiddos. If you are still recovering from a rough Thanksgiving and dreading the Christmas chaos, just remember that it's the thought that counts. You've been sharing your holiday fails with us for the last week or so. Mike sent us this photo of his wife, Kate, at what used to be a fruit tart. It was supposed to be Thanksgiving dessert a few years ago. He says that she's learned that balancing the dessert in the fridge on top of the defrosting turkey probably isn't the best idea. And then Philip sent us this photo of him posing in front of what used to be a turkey, we assume. He says he was deep frying it. He got distracted by a call from his sister. After a while, she asked him if he needed to go check on the turkey. He said, as long as it doesn't catch fire, it'll be fine. Looks like it got awfully close to that. So send us your perfectly unperfect holiday stories, especially if you have photos or video. Next at 9news.com will get our attention. You can also do it with the hashtag HeyNext. The quarterback carousel kept spinning for the Denver Broncos over the weekend. It's the norm for lifelong fans like 4-month-old Tilly. And it's the most Colorado thing we saw today. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today, a lifelong Broncos fan taking the team's quarterback carousel in stride, probably because she's too young to notice. Alicia tweeted at us about her daughter Tilly. On Sunday, the 4-month-old cheered on the 4th Broncos starting quarterback in her short little lifetime. Locke Driscoll, oh boy, I always mispronounce his name, and now Hinton. Now, judging by her smile, yesterday's game had not started by the time these photos were taken. Alicia says Tilly is ready to take the field if her team needs her. But hey, shout out to Kendall Hinton. That was a bad situation he was put in yesterday. The Broncos country should be proud of what he did despite the loss. And I'll figure out how to pronounce the names of quarterbacks when I start following more football than I do hockey. Finish with your feedback now. Sherry writes in to say about Larry Liston wearing the mask on his head. It's all fun and silliness till a loved one gets gravely ill from COVID. Speaking of people getting gravely ill from COVID, the story of firefighter Jason Phillips, who was here from Washington to battle the Cameron Peak fire. Pat wrote in to say, my family appreciates you. Our land was saved. So sorry you had to fight COVID too. And Jeannie writes, prayers for a full recovery. Thank you for your service. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.